Yeah. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. Yeah, get your boots ready. We're about to go on a trip where we wrestle, nobody settling or calling it quits. You're here for the grit, betcha this stuff is amazing. You're stumbling, welcome to the bump in the apron. Step into it, the hardest part of the ring. Here to bring fun, yeah, and this art he's king. It's the best thing, making sure you don't tap out. Don't go soft with the hardest podcast out. And it's not just another one, it's clear. Off the rest, in this content, none contest. Take the nonsense off the steps. You know it's nothing but pure gems when it's coming off the chest. Get it? Now it's time to sit and relax. Get your mind blown away, ain't no skipping this track. Have you paying more attention, no listening gap. Get everything I ever wanted, no giving it back. Yeah.
Ooh, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, the hardest part of the ring, better known, or I guess at this point, lesser known as Kyle. Welcome to the Apron Bump Podcast. Progress Wrestling, Chapter 15. Will slap my ass and call me Sally. Progress Wrestling, hopping across the pond once again to the Electric Ballroom in I don't know, somewhere over there in the Europes. And so, no, it's funny. So, actually, out front, I'll go ahead and plug my guest for this show. Lovely guest, had Ross from the Wrestling Should Be Fun podcast joining me on this show. You might remember him from a previous Progress review, Chapter 9, and had their boy Dom do a little ROH review, All-Star Extravaganza. So, great group of lads over there. Varying interests in wrestling. They watch all sorts of wrestling. As you will be able to tell through their podcast, the Wrestling Should Be Fun podcast. You can find that at wrestlingshouldbefun.com. But you can listen wherever you listen to podcasts. Find their Twitter and Instagram in the description as well. Great follows on social media. But I wanted to kind of lay that out front because my guest, Ross, was actually at this show, which is pretty fun. I mean, I think he lived... We talked about it on Chapter 9, but I believe he lives just a few blocks away from this place, that lucky bastard. But yes, and given what we saw on this show, I am peanut butter and jelly that he was at this show because it was a great show, Chapter 15. The main event in particular was, it was insane. I mean, I think I even mentioned it in the episode, but it gave me... I don't want to be too, hyperbolic here, but it gave me Attitude Era kind of vibes at the end with just how chaotic everything was and how like into it the crowd was, how hot it dude, it was at this point Progress is hitting on all cylinders and really enjoying it because apparently and we talk about it in the episode, but I guess it doesn't last forever, but we can enjoy it while it lasts. And you can enjoy it as well. You can hear me talk about it. And if you are kind of just jumping in here at Chapter 15, you can go to apronbump.com, go to the episodes tab, hit Progress Wrestling, and that'll bring you to all my Progress episodes that I've covered thus far. So Chapter 1 through here, Chapter 15. And it has been a hoot of a time. But where did we leave off? Chapter 14. Well, we had Jimmy Havoc defend his Progress staff against Noam Dar. A little bit of a shady way, but he retained it. Noam is having none of this. He was not happy with how he lost, so he wants revenge. We had the team of FSU, so the team of Mark Andrews and Eddie Dennis, defeated the London Riots to retain their Progress tag team titles, or the severed shield kind of thing that represents the title. I don't know what the fuck is going on with all these championships, but I need me some belts quickly. Will Ospreay is the Thunder Bastard. He's the Thunder Bastard. which essentially means he's the Money in the Bank, Mr. Money in the Bank. And now that I'm saying it out loud, Thunder Bastard is kind of less cringy than Mr. Money in the Bank when you really think about it. But I lay all that out because the main event is an 8-man tag team match, careers versus titles. And we lay out the backstory in the episode, but it is a definitely a hot build, hot match. And hey, the rest of the show, pretty damn good as well, as always, for these Progress shows, honestly. I mean, last chapter, you had Samoa Joe come in and beat Rampage in a pretty mediocre match. But hey, Rampage is back, and I would say he recovers from it. And he's in one of 2 number 1 contender matches on this show, a series of pretty entertaining triple threat matches on this show to crown 2 number 1 contenders. I know the math doesn't really compute there, but basically there's going to be a triple threat match at the next chapter with those 2 winners and the Progress champion. That gets set up on this show. The Natural Progression series also continues on as we have Pete Dunne versus Flash Morgan Webster. Yes, Pete Dunne is still Dynamite Pete. He is not the Bruiserweight yet, but we talk about it in the episode. But he starts to make some transitions in his style, which is really interesting to see. Really interesting to see a young Pete Dunne, because it is he's a beefy boy at this point, and a bit of a scene kid as well. Oh yeah, and Sin Cara makes an appearance on this show, but that's whatever. Oh yeah, Sting is here. The man called Sing. Yeah, he's here. And just by the way, it's fine. And we get what Ross describes as the best promo work in British wrestling thus far in the history of British wrestling. I don't know how, did that make sense the way I just said it? Probably not. But we talk about how British wrestling isn't really known for their promos, but we get a really significant one on this show that sets up a pretty big match on the next chapter. So a lot happening on the show is what I'm trying to say. So let's get into it. Progress Wrestling, Chapter 15, with myself and Ross from the Wrestling Should Be Fun podcast. But yeah, man, once again, thank you for coming back on here. Talk a little Progress Wrestling. Did you get a chance to watch the show?
I did, yeah. I watched it this morning. We'll go into it later, but yeah, very much enjoyed it. It was nice to go back and remember how fun and wild Progress was at the start.
Yeah, that's I think, because a lot of people have said that to me. When do you think Progress started to kind of like lose its steam, like chapter wise?
It's hard for me to say an exact chapter, but I think once,
like a ballpark.
I think once it became more about the cool indie guys that they could book,
right,
rather than like actually making stories. I think that was when it started to become a little bit like we were massively spoiled, I think, and there was way more chapters per month than previous, and we were a bit like, yeah, it's good, but we're pretty tired.
It sounds kind of similar to NXT in a way. Like they kind of, for a while, they kind of got away from the characters and the storylines. Plus, on top of that, adding an extra hour. Yeah. And it feels like it became like too much when like the magic of it was like, oh, it's kind of this unique thing that we only got a taste of every single week. That seems like what Progress kind of turns into.
And actually watching it back, it was such a breeze to watch because they cut out all the entrances. They didn't have the Jim Smallman at the start. And it felt like it was such a hot ticket in town that they were like, let's show everything on the later chapters. So you watch the later chapters and you have to sit and watch the entrances, sit and watch the 25-minute start by Jim Smallman. And it showed to the people that couldn't be there, like yourself, I guess, from over the pond.
Yeah.
Like it was highlighting exactly what it was like to be there. But also it kind of took away the kind of instantaneousness of like this show where it was just bang, 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 match, match, match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. This was such an easy watch. Like you said, it's action, action, action. And we last spoke when we were reviewing chapter 9, I believe it was.
Yes.
What did you? Because I think chapter 9 they were still in the garage or the garage, however you guys say it. But yeah, now that they're in the electric ballroom, it's like production wise, it's improved leaps and bounds just within a few chapters.
I remember that we spoke about the Styx match in particular, where I think it was him and Cruz. They were just fighting in the crowd at the garage, and you couldn't see anything. Whereas, for example, the main event, 8-man, most of the action takes place outside the ring, and the lighting lets you actually see the action, which is
novel idea, right? You can actually see what's going on. Man, we'll get into the main event when we get to it, but if that would have been such a bummer if you couldn't see what was happening, because that was pretty much the whole match.
Yeah, I was actually at this show.
Were you?
I was in the corner, stood up, and couldn't see much of the action unless it was in the ring. But we'll talk about it later. But the big kind of bump in that match, I was underneath it, which was amazing.
Oh, did you catch him?
No, I didn't. I'm a massive Miz fan, so I just left it.
Just got out of Dodge. I get it. But yeah, man, so chapter 15. And like I said, we last spoke about chapter 9, and that's the show where Jimmy Havoc turned heel. Still probably the most pivotal chapter up to this point, in my opinion, just because that started his whole reign of terror, and that's still going on at this point, I guess like almost a year later about. And since then, Jimmy Havoc, he's defended the staff a few times, and he's started to build a faction around him called Regression. I don't know how. Doesn't seem like it's going to last that long. Once again, we'll get to it in the main event with how that all played out. But so that's basically the main event, as you mentioned, and that's kind of what the whole show is built around. Is an 8-man tag, and it's a titles versus career match. So that'll be coming up in the main event.
What did you make of the opening promo, the video package? I
liked it. That's like we said, like the production has been improving, and I think that kind of lends itself to in the video packages too. Like I know in like the first couple chapters there weren't really much of a it was pretty much you like turn it on and it's match like right away. But the video package here, it was it's not WWE quality or anything, but it was solid.
It just told the story of exactly what you needed to know. If obviously I was at the show and I followed Progress at the time, but as someone like yourself who was just following it years later, you could switch this on, and having not seen chapter 14 in some time, you could easily be like, oh yeah, this is what's happening. And I loved the kind of overdub where it was saying about like, we all have secrets, we all hide our real selves. And at the time there was real talk about, okay, so who's going to turn on who in this big 8-man? Because obviously Jimmy Havoc was building his stable, and wrestling being wrestling, there's always a turn, right?
Right.
So there was always, so like in amongst the Progress fans, there was very much like, I think it's going to be Dennis, or I think it's going to be Andrews, or all that sort of stuff. So yeah, like the promo was released like the week previous to the show, and it was a massive hype thing for us that were like actually at the show. We were like so hyped for that 8-man tag, and it showed with the crowd reactions.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even when they set it up in the previous chapter, I was like, man, that sounds like a belter of a match. I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, that the intro package, it lays out the story. So last chapter, Noam Dar lost the title match to Jimmy Havoc. Lots of shenanigans involved in that, interference and all that. And a few chapters ago, Paul Robinson turned on Will Ospreay because they were formerly a tag team. Paul Robinson turned heel on Ospreay, beat him up with a chair, and then later in the show, he cost Mark Andrews his world title match. And then FSU and the London Riots have been going at it. Yeah. FSU beat the London Riots to become the first ever tag team champions. I can't remember if we discussed this last time, but do you know what FSU stands for?
We did talk about it last time, and we weren't too sure. But FSU.
You didn't do your research?
It just sounds good, right?
God damn it! You had 6 chapters to figure it out. I'm so disappointed in you, but I'll allow it this time. But next time, when you're whatever chapter 20 something, you better have it right.
If the SummerSlam 2022 does happen in Wales, I promise that I'll look into it.
High stakes. But yeah, so it cuts after that video package to the first match. So we got Martin Kirby and Doug Williams versus Screw Indie Wrestling, the team of Shaw Samuels and Mark Haskins. It's funny, I don't know if you saw this, but recently there was like an interaction on Twitter between Martin Kirby and Doug Williams. They were like, Martin was like, man, my one dream match that I have left is against Doug Williams. We've never had a match together. And then here they are tagging together. So I guess they've been on the same team, but haven't faced each other really. Yeah,
I'm assuming, if my memory serves correctly, that this was supposed to be Project Ego, and sadly, Trav was starting to go through his issues at this point. So I think that's the reason that Williams is in this match. In some of the early chapters, but I think this is his first ballroom show.
Yeah, I think Martin Kirby had like a short match at the last chapter. But yeah, like you said, with Project Ego no longer being a thing at this point, which I don't even know if I realized it last time we recorded. I was like, oh, Project Ego. Yeah, they're probably still going today. What a great tag team. I can't wait till they get to the WWE, but god damn it.
Yeah.
Super sad. But and then Screw Indie Wrestling. Oh my god, who's the other guy that was a part of this? Nathan Cruz. Do you know what happened to him? Does he come back at all? I think he might be injured or something at this point.
He does come back, which I'm very happy about, as I'm a big Cruz fan. And he plays a pretty big part in the next few chapters. So if you're a fan of him, then that's great news for you. But if not, then sorry.
Then fuck off. No, I do like Nathan Cruz. I thought he definitely was a standout guy amongst all like the comedy and all the silliness. Like he definitely stood out in a good way.
Yeah, definitely someone that can handle the microphone, which is something
for sure.
That British wrestling is not known for.
Yeah. I mean, other than Mark Haskins out here, he seems like a pretty good promo himself.
Yeah, he was doing the kind of "What about me?"
Yeah, that was like, are we getting a flock out of this? Is that what's happening?
Yeah. What about the star attraction?
What's Mark Haskins up to nowadays? It's weird that he hasn't popped up somewhere more mainstream.
He's currently wrestling for Rev Pro and some other British indies. I'm not sure if he's still got an ROH contract. I hope he does, because he's brilliant. But he's currently
he's great
on the Rev Pro scene.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, I'm an American, so if you're not in WWE or AEW, you're not wrestling. So that's pretty much how that goes. And
Vince has really taught you well, hasn't
he? Yeah, Daddy Vince. He tells me what's good wrestling. They tell stories, after all. I don't know if you've heard. Can you, before this match gets underway, can you explain to me who Fireman Sam is?
Okay, I thought this was going to come up. So Fireman Sam is a children's cartoon character who's exactly as it says on the tin. He's a fireman and he's called Sam.
Oh, okay.
And Jim Smallman on commentary played it off that it was like British Breaking Bad, which obviously is not true, but yeah.
That's why I asked, because I love Breaking Bad. So I was like, man, I should probably check out this Fireman Sam. But from what you're telling me, I should probably avoid it at all costs.
Please do. Please check it out.
But yeah, like you said, Jim Smallman brought it up because Shaw Samuels, who's still going at it in NXT UK, he looks pretty much the same here as he does now with the stupid fucking I hate the suspenders. I don't know about you, but they're awful.
So the suspenders, when I first started watching Shaw Samuels matches, played a big part where he would take them off and strangle his opponent, and it played a part in the match. I don't think it really played a part in this match other than people chanting at him that to do his brace back up because it fell off.
Yeah, that's every match I've seen of his. Like a suspender falls off and then it's like trailing behind him, and it like gives me such anxiety. Like, dude, just take them off. We don't need them. So it's like, I don't know, man. They were the crowd was calling him a dickhead, and then he was like jerking his head off, which is good fun.
Yeah.
Good fun. Good family fun there.
Yeah, that was when he took, I think it was Kirby outside the ring and got some nice heel heat. Even at the start of this show, obviously this is the first match, and you can just tell how much the crowd are invested in each of the wrestlers. It's just great. It's pretty rare sometimes now that you watch wrestling that's the case. I just recently watched the NXT 2.0 show from yesterday, and it's got a little bit of that feel actually, where the crowd are just invested in people, which is great, right? Like,
yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah.
I absolutely love the fact that in this match, Haskins obviously is probably the standout wrestler in terms of this match, in terms of what he's doing in the ring.
Yeah.
He's not getting over in terms of, okay, he's good at wrestling, because interspersed with all the good moves that he's doing, he's also doing the bullshit kind of kick, like getting out of submissions by scratching people's eyes and doing the kind of the elbow rubs and all that sort of stuff. Like, yeah, that's what I loved about this match, was just that it wasn't anything to set the room on fire, and that's not particularly what you want from a match, really. And then you'd also got the heels winning by having the feet on the ropes. So yeah, for me, this was just a really solid tag that got the crowd into the show, and we move on to something a bit more fun.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I said the same thing. It's just very solid. Solid is the good word. Like you said, it didn't, it's not 5-star, in the Tokyo Dome kind of deal. But one thing I did note is that, Shaw Samuels and Mark Haskins, I love their cohesion as a team, because oftentimes you'll watch a tag team match and it'll feel like a series of singles matches.
Yeah.
But in this match, Samuels and Haskins did a good job at kind of working together. There was one point, I believe, where like Samuels is on the outside and he grabs, I think, Martin Kirby, who's standing on the inside, that allows Haskins to hit an enziguri. So he's kind of trapping him there. And then the finish, like you said, it was a feet on the ropes kind of deal. But that was set up when Doug Williams was going for the Chaos Theory. And then I believe it was, it was Samuels that held Haskins to prevent that Chaos Theory from being executed. And then the roll up occurred after that, feet on the ropes. Samuels helped Haskins with that as well. So good heel like tactics coupled with tag team kind of cohesion between the two.
Yeah.
And Kirby looks good.
That this is the first match, of course, and already you've got the ref Chris Roberts being absolutely rubbish at his job.
These refs, man, they man, the sun was beating in his eyes. It was the whole thing,
Yeah, so many 2-on-1s, but with like the other person from the face team coming in and him being like, "You can't get in the ring," and everyone just being like, "Roberts."
Yeah, they finally let the I can't remember if this happened at Chapter 9 or not, but his voice cracked one time, and then they just never let it go. 1, 2. So poor Chris Roberts, man. But solid match. Doug Williams also, just got to note that Doug Williams looked really good. I mean, I'm not breaking any ground saying that Doug Williams is good, but like at this point in his career, this is after TNA and all that, but he's still in great shape and moving around really well.
Yeah, it was strange actually, because I thought that during the match, actually being there live as well, and I was assuming that he would get a lot more bookings, and it was something like 2 more years since this match that he gets booked on Progress. I'm not entirely sure why, but
really,
it's like not the best fit once we moved to the ballroom. That Williams didn't quite fit the Progress mold, maybe, but it seems a shame because, as you say, like he's just an absolute stalwart, isn't he?
Yeah, and still going today. Recently unretired, I guess, and big Doug Williams guy. But after that, we have a natural progression series semifinal match: Flash Morgan Webster versus Pete Dunne. Not the Bruiserweight, Dynamite Pete Dunne.
Hint, hint, Tony Khan.
Yeah. It's a precursor. It's a precursor to Oh man, yeah. What goes through your mind? Because like Pete Dunne here, he is not the Pete Dunne that people know and love today. He almost looks like what Flash Morgan Webster looks like today. Like
Well,
Pete Dunne almost looks like he could be a part of subculture in NXT
yeah,
UK.
yeah, yeah. He was definitely a scene kid as a teenager, Pete Dunne, for sure.
Oh, the gauges,
Yeah,
the Justin Bieber hair. Oh, it's all the cargo pants.
the flesh
It's
tunnels as
yeah.
well in his ears.
It's
Yeah,
he's a pretty cool guy, right? He's pretty cool.
I like him.
Flash Morgan Webster, pretty much the same kind of deal here.
Yeah.
But
I'm assuming that you didn't necessarily get the jokes at the start where Webster was called a bus wanker.
no, yeah. Can you please explain that to me?
So in England, there's a pretty popular comedy show which is based around kind of 16-year-old kids called The In-Betweeners. And it's 4 characters that kind of fall through the later years of their school life to and fucking up in their love lives and all that sort of stuff that people love. And there's a scene in that where they drive past a bus station and one of the guys rolls out his window and says "bus wankers" to these people.
Bus wankers.
So Webster looks a bit like that character from the show. So yeah, people just latched onto it.
That's a pretty deep cut. So, but now that I know the context, I'll go back and watch it because I'm sure that'll add to it.
So, did you also notice that Webster was kind of wearing what I can only think of as kind of Scotty flamingo pants? He looked like from like '92, right? In those pants.
Did he? I thought he wrestled it in trunks.
Well, like pants in the UK is trunks. But yeah.
Oh, I see. See, we're all learning. We're all learning. It's a cultural melting pot here on the Apron Bump.
But I think that by and large, Flash's character is pretty much there, apart from the fact that he's wearing pink pants. In terms of what you now see him in, like he still had the crash helmet. He still had the mod haircut. He does all the same moves pretty much. He probably does a bit more high flying stuff in this match than he does now. He does a few more strikes and things now on NXT UK. But as you say, Dynamite Pete Dunne, still massively finding himself. His body type is way different here as well, isn't it? And they mentioned that on commentary about how Pete Dunne's got the power, whereas now he's like fully vegan and his body type's a bit different now. But there's small little signs that Pete Dunne, in terms of his moveset, is starting to find himself, because previous to this chapter, he was doing a lot more moves that Webster was doing, so like a lot more high flying stuff.
Right.
But in this match, you can start to like see the kind of birth of the Bruiserweight character. With he tries to do a few kind of like limb work moves, but in particular, I'm thinking about the kind of the did he do the like stamp on the feet?
I think he did.
Yeah, and they did like the did he do it like a few more submissions? I'm pretty sure that he did. Like, I made a note here that even though he's still trying to do the kind of high flying stuff, Webster in this match is so much better at that sort of stuff, and it really shows. And it's actually a wise move, I think, that Dunne moved away from it, because if he carried on just trying to be this like cruiserweight, I don't think that he would have been anywhere near a bigger a success as he was.
No, agreed. Yeah, he had a match at Chapter 13 against Robbie X, and that match specifically, he was very high flying. I think I even mentioned that when I reviewed it. He was very he did like the Spider-Man spot in the ropes. He was flipping all over the place, going to the top rope and all that. And he does a little bit of that in this match, but it's definitely, like you said, it's more akin to the Bruiserweight character that we see today. Yeah.
And it sets him apart, because by and large, the British scene was full of blokes that were 5'10" and flippy.
Yeah, even on this card, there's a ton of those guys. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, so it sets him apart.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this match is it was kind of a short match, but it was dense with action in
Yeah.
it, and that's kind of what these natural progression matches, I guess, are designed to do. Is these young up and comers gives them a chance to kind of showcase what they can do. Not designed to be a a 60-minute bell to bell kind of deal,
Yeah.
but
From a booking thing though, like it's the first match here where it's face v face, and that's something that happens quite a lot in this card. And I think a kind of sprint match in that circumstance where they're just trying to outdo each other is perfect. Because if you try and implement psychology into a face v face match, sometimes it kind of sets the crowd apart and they have to pick a side. Whereas this sort of match where it's just you do a move, I'll do a move, you kick out, I'll kick out.
I think every card kind of needs that. Like I've noticed that in my Ring of Honor rewatch, there's always like at least a match or two where it's like a scramble match, and it's literally just there for the fancy moves, like to get the crowd like, oh, just to show how impressive our moves are. And like as time goes on, like that used to really annoy me, those kind of matches, but now it's like whatever, it's fun. Like I get it, you want to showcase what these guys can do, and the crowd is into it, so no harm in that really, especially like you said, when it's structured within the card, when you have like psychology stuff in the other matches on the card. So but yeah, like I said, this match was pretty much full tilt from the get-go. You have Webster springboarding everywhere. He hits a double springboard Hurricane Rana onto Dunne, hits like a rampage DDT. I guess that's what I associated with the move that Page used to do. You got Pete Dunne throwing out these huge brain busters. You got Webster. He goes for a plancha on the outside. This is the crowd went nuts over this. Webster did like a flip over the top rope. Pete Dunne catches him and then hits him with a brutal powerbomb on the apron, throws him right in the ring, and then hits a huge bitter end, but only for a 2 count. I guess the bitter end isn't his finisher at this point, so that really, I bid on that one because that was like one of the most devastating bitter ends I've ever seen followed that powerbomb on the apron. I was like, there's no way Webster's going to kick out of this. Yeah,
that bitter end almost looked a bit like when Brock did the F5 on Spike.
Yeah, just like went up in the air like a tornado. You have Webster kind of fights back. He goes for a 450 but misses. Pete Dunne hits a fireman's carry gutbuster on the Webster, then a huge like Liger power bomb. Pete Dunne follows that up with a tombstone for a 2 count. It's like, God, you can't kill this Flash Morgan Webster guy. He's just taking a beating in there. Webster.
At this point, when he kicked out of that tombstone, was when the crowd started to pick a side because people were like, God, this like Flash is just showing such heart, and like they started to kind of side with Webster at that point, I felt.
Yeah, I agree for sure. Webster hits a crazy springboard poison Rana onto Pete Dunne, dumps him right on his head, and then he follows it up with a 450 onto the back of Pete Dunne and gives Webster the win. So, and this is all within, I don't know how long this match was, maybe 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah, it was the quickest 8 minutes of my life.
Yeah, for sure. It was crazy fun to watch and really interesting to see these guys like in the early iterations of their career, for sure.
Yeah. How do you think that Flash has done like since like having seen him here? Do you think that he's kind of like where he should be, or do you think that he could or should have been a bigger thing?
I think I like where he is now, teaming with Mark Andrews. I think they got a pretty good deal going on there. I think like in recent years, like when I first, cause I didn't know of him until that first tournament that WWE did, the UK tournament or whatever it was. Maybe it might have been the second one.
I think it was the second.
Yeah. So I wasn't really that huge a fan of him in the beginning. Nothing really stuck out to me other than the fact they just came out with a helmet. And I was like, me, an American, I'm like, what does it mean to be a mod? What is mod?
What is mod?
There's a place by me called Mod Pizza. So he's like, okay, is he like a pizza maker? Yeah, he's like a Tony D'Angelo here. So maybe that's who he is.
It must have
But
felt for you that he was the pizza guy, right?
yeah, he was the pizza guy for the longest time. I was like, why is he delivering pizza on a bike? Is that why he has a helmet? I was very confused. So, and my tiny little brain couldn't comprehend it, so I'd kind of tune out of his matches. But but I do like I feel like his style. You said earlier that his style has kind of evolved to more strike base, even though he does do a lot of high flying still. I
Yeah,
feel like the all the knees and stuff that he does, the
one of my
kicks.
favorite knees in wrestling. I think he's got great timing on that.
Dude, that double team that him and Andrews do, where Andrews will hit a reverse Rana, and then as Webster hits the knee,
Yeah.
it's incredible.
I
I
think,
love them as a team.
I think that the best that he's ever looked, probably, and to the biggest level, was probably that NXT match that he had against Riddle and Dunne.
Oh yeah,
I think it was in the cup that they do, that like yearly cup.
I don't remember that. Was it the Worlds Collide thing?
No, it was just on NXT. It was like, what's the cup that?
Oh, the Dusty Cup.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I forgot he was in that. I believe you, but I forgot he was in that.
The year that Riddle and Dunne won, I think they beat them in the first round, and it's just an absolute barnstormer.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, like I said, as a team, I love them, and yeah, Webster and Dunn looked pretty good here. So I guess Webster moves on to I think it's the final. Yeah, the finals. He moves into. I forget. I think that might be the first semifinal match that's occurred. So, but after that, we get everybody's favorite Styx.
I bloody love Styx, and I know that we spoke in our Chapter 9 podcast. Our Wrestling Should Be Fun friend Brum does not like Styx, but I am gonna put my flag in the ground again and say that Styx is good.
I couldn't remember if it was you or him that hated him, but I'm glad you're on the Styx bandwagon here. That makes me happy. But so Styx versus Pastor William Ever, who is Jesus for anybody listening. Yeah. Basically, Jesus wearing trunks.
Did you also get the pun that like the word Bill is short for William, so he's a believer?
Oh God!
Come on, guys.
That stinks. I hate it. Believer. Oh God, you just ruined Pastor William Ever for me. I'm gonna have you know this. That is pretty clever, actually. That is pretty clever. Yeah, this match, there's not a lot to this match. Really, the crowd pretty much hijacked this match, which you have Jesus in there and you have Styx on the other side. It's like, how are you not gonna let the crowd just overcome you with this?
What was your favorite chant?
Thou shall flip, thou shall flip, and then then Ever teases like a planche over the top rope, and then he just doesn't do it. Like, what a great deal.
Cool. Yeah. When he slides onto his knees instead.
Yeah. Any other chants stick out to you?
I was always a big fan of just let's go Jesus sucks.
Something feels wrong about that. I'm not sure what it is, but
I also quite enjoyed it when they would sing you only work on the Sabbath, work on the Sabbath. That's a good one.
I'm not a big religion guy, and I think there's also a lot of very British kind of references during this match. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot. Absolutely right in that the crowd did hijack this. I think people were just like trying to think of more fun Jesus puns and Jesus chants rather than watching the match. But actually, like, I tried to kind of block that out and actually try and figure out if this match actually had any psychology. And I think I found some. I think.
Tell me, because I was unable to identify it.
Okay, so in my estimation, this match is where Styx starts to basically question himself a little bit. So you've got all the trivial crowd stuff. You've got the crowd playing along, and Styx at the start is playing along, and then like is asking the crowd to like sing louder and things like that. Then you get some back and forth stuff, just like the grapples, and Eva gets the best of it. So Styx rolls out to the outside. And he's kind of like, "Fuck, man! Like, I need to get into this." So then he comes back in the ring with a different attitude of like, I'm not about this kind of like face v face fun time thing. Like, I'm in progress. I need to get the win. So he starts to take the match and actually like starts to just kind of do some like ground and pound and things like that. And then he goes up to the second rope, something that I don't think Styx should ever do. And gets pushed off because someone says something to him, like whilst he's on the rope, and he sells it, and he like leans in almost, saying like, "What?" And then that gives Eva the chance to kind of knock him off the rope. And then he then has a switch in mentality again, where he seems to weirdly go into kind of Mike Awesome mode, and he's starting to do like cross bodies across the ring, the senton over the top rope, all that sort of stuff that's not really Styx. And it seems to be a bit like this match was outlined psychology wise to be like, he doesn't quite know where he is in progress. Like, is he a fun time guy? Is he a Hoss guy? Is he going to be a hybrid? And he doesn't quite know where he is, and he ends up eating the pin.
Right.
And then like the last scene after you get Eva doing the fun thing where he wins by a clothesline from heaven, obviously.
Well, no. He won by a crucifix pin.
Crucifix. You're right.
This is after, by the way, he attempted a cross power bomb.
Yes, of course he did.
But then with the crucifix gives Jesus the win. So, of course.
So yeah, like the match obviously wasn't amazing, and the crowd weren't invested at all. But I was purposely being like, I'm going to try and make Styx look good here and try and find some psychology. And I think I found it. I think it's like a match here that plays into what happens later in the show, where Styx can't quite figure out what he is in this modern world where he's a veteran and the industry is changing and he doesn't want to be passed by, but he doesn't quite know how to go about it. And yeah, like this match tried to like show that, where he tries to be the kind of fun time guy, then he tries to be the Hoss guy, tries to be a bit of a hybrid, and none of it works. And then he's just a sad panda at the end.
Sad panda Styx. No, I think you're 100% right, especially with what happens later, which we'll get into. But yeah, like when I just saw the match in a vacuum, I was like, oh, that's kind of just a filler match. But yeah, especially again with the context of what happens later in the show, that's absolutely right. Because Styx, ever since the beginning of Progress, like he started out as a heel, just this big, like you said, a Hoss kind of guy. And then kind of gradually he would like play with the crowd a little bit more and more every match or every chapter he was on. And then he kind of became like a comedy guy at one point. He's like a full comedy guy that just happened to be big, just a lovable panda kind of guy. And then now he's like, wait a minute, I'm losing my matches. Like, it's okay, it's fun, but like seriously, can I win a match, please?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that, bottling that up.
Yeah.
To where it's gonna eventually burst, and it bursts again later in the show. But
and it's actually kind of reality meets kind of fiction a little bit, where like the crowd being so just kind of like, this is just a bit of a joke and we're just going to have a bit of time off and just make make chants throughout the match and not be that invested in the match. It kind of plays into what Styx psychologically was feeling, like kayfabe. So actually the crowd acting the way that it did actually fell perfectly into what they were going for.
Yeah. And I feel like, throwing a guy that looks exactly like Jesus into a match, you can pretty much bet on the crowd, taking advantage of that, so to speak. But I think, especially with the way you put it, I think that ended up perfectly how they intended to. But after that, we have a triple threat match. So on this card, there are 2 triple threat matches, and the 2 winners of these matches will go on to face the champion in a triple threat match on the next card. So this is one of 2 number 1 contender matches on this card, basically. So this one is Rampage Brown versus Zack Sabre Jr. versus Party Marty Skrull. He's still going by Party Marty, but he does not look like he's definitely transitioning into the villain here.
Yeah. He's even got the word villain on the back of his pants.
I mean, that's if you don't believe me, just look at his ass. Like it's right there. It's got the jacket, the hair. I think he even has a cane and all that.
Yeah,
So definitely like an in between of his gimmicks. But
it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because we've now seen quite a lot of wrestlers, and the only real heels that we've seen are Haskins and Samuels. Because even in this match, Marty plays the heel, but it doesn't. But like we'll go into it in this match, but like he doesn't really become the heel until kind of late on. He plays the kind of like comedy heel, which people love.
right, it's almost like villain's supposed to be ironic, I guess, because he's not really a villain, but he looks like a villain, I guess, is what he's going for.
Well, my kind of take on it was that, like he, like as you say, he is transitioning from Party Marty to the villain, and it's almost like this match is almost where it happens because at the start he's just Party Marty and he's just trying to have a good time. He's trying to make the crowd laugh. He also goes back to obviously the leaders of New School tag team with Zack Sabre Jr. here, and Zack's a big face, so he plays into that kind of almost Lex Luger with Sting territory, where like, yeah, I'm still a nice guy, sort of thing. Yeah, and then later in the match, he kind of turns on Zack and becomes the villain. So it's almost like we kind of see the birth of it in this match.
Yeah, as like there was a lot of comedy in this match, which is why, like to your point, there's no real heel. Even Rampage, who previously was a heel, he joined Screw Indie Wrestling. He beat Ligero, I believe it was, for the title. He was this big badass heel on top of the company, and then he's kind of transitioned. It's one of those deals where the crowd, he's just too cool for the crowd to boo. So the crowd's really gotten behind Rampage at this point. And like you said, Zack Sabre Jr., crowd's really behind. He's killing it in Japan at this point. And then you got Marty there. And like you said, the leaders of the New School, which is a team of Zack Sabre Jr. and Marty Scurll, they kind of play into that in this match they team up to try to take down the bigger Rampage Brown. And they take turns trying to like clothesline Rampage, like throwing shoulder blocks at him, but he's not budging. They take turns and then they like both go at the same time. And then they I forget if it's Chris Roberts or not, but they point at the referee.
Yeah, it is Roberts.
Yeah. And they hey, Chris, you take a turn. And then Chris Roberts goes for a shoulder block himself and it just gets obliterated. He just runs right into Rampage and does like 5 backflips and blows his shoulder out. It's a whole thing. Crowd chants "You deserve it" at him, which he did. I guess, like, what do you expect? That's honestly a big chunk of this match. It's like Zack and Marty trying to like overcome Rampage. They finally do a double shoulder block, which kind of backs up Rampage a little bit. But then Rampage just follows it up with a double suplex onto both of them. So it's like, well, fuck me, Rampage. I guess you're going to kill both of us.
In that small ring at Progress, like, I don't know the exact dimension of that ring, but it's nowhere near a WWE or NXT ring. And some of the intricacies were like the crossovers with the leapfrogs and the drop downs with 2 people in the like to like do it twice. Like the timing of it was unbelievable, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the chemistry between Marty and Zack, they're a tag team, obviously, and they've had great matches against each other. And like you said, like I can't explain it with words what happened, but like you said, it's like leapfrogs, drop downs, but like with 3 of them. So try to picture that in your head. You're like
in a ring that's like 8 foot.
Yeah, I think a WWE ring is 20 by 20, and this is probably maybe 16 by 16. I'm not really sure, but that's a huge difference. So really impressive stuff when it comes to that. The leaders of the New School eventually kind of overcome Rampage a little bit. There's a point where Marty is holding Rampage in a camel clutch. So Zack gets like a head of steam and kicks him right in the face. He kicks Rampage. And then they kind of alternate. So Zack is holding Rampage and Marty tries to build up steam. He hits the ropes, hits the other ropes, hits the ropes, hits the ropes, hits the ropes, and so he does that for like 2 minutes straight. And then does he actually end up kicking him, or does he just like...
So he chooses to kick Zack, and that's the turning point.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. I was worn out by watching him run back and forth.
Did you also get that when they did the camel clutch into the drop kick, the crowd started doing the Taka chant of "Indeed."
Yeah, it's a little foreshadowing for Zack Sabre Jr.
Absolutely.
Link it up with Taka.
It all started at chapter 15.
Yeah. Oh man, it all comes together. But yeah, like you said, Marty turns on Zack and they kind of start going at it. Rampage gets back in the mix. Marty amazingly hits a UFO onto Rampage Brown. That
So
was
good. How did he do that?
I still don't understand how that happened. Like Rampage is twice the size, but Marty's there with his hands at his waist and making him spin. Zack eventually he kind of capitalizes on this by hitting a PK on a Marty Skrull, but then Rampage is back up. He recovers from the UFO, clotheslines the shit out of Zack Sabre Jr., and then hits him with a brutal pile driver for the win. So Rampage Brown gets the win and moves on to face the champion at the next chapter. Pretty good stuff here, in my opinion.
Like I think this and the Dunne matches are clearly the two best matches on the card, and they follow the same kind of suit, just kind of like balls to the wall. Psychology goes out the window a little bit, but this one had a story, obviously, with the turn with Marty Skrull, which I think worked, and the crowd just ate it up. They know that they're watching three of the best in the ring, and they just eat it up.
Yeah, it's great. There's been a lot of great matches thus far through these chapters, but still, like chapter 1, Marty Skrull versus Zack Sabre Jr. might still be the top one. I mean, those guys and they would go on to face each other thousands of times. So it
would have been even better if it was in the ballroom and it actually worked.
Yeah, that first chapter where it was like one hard cam and one shitty little camcorder ringside that was like blurry, and you had like the computers and screen. It was all a mess, but man, if you thought there was shenanigans in that match, next match, RJ Singh versus Michael Gilbert. What are your thoughts on Michael Gilbert?
The Michael Gilbert character I thought was brilliant, personally. As you've seen throughout these chapters, a lot of what Progress was great at was comedy wrestling. And in front of that crowd that just loved getting pissed up and having a good time, it was perfect.
Yeah.
And have someone like Michael Gilbert come out with no music, no gimmicks needed, and just wrestle was absolutely brilliant. Like it to me, it was as smart a play as the kind of the anti-hardcore stuff that Foley did to the ECW crowd. ECW crowd wanted blood and guts, and Foley just wouldn't let them have it. And the Progress crowd wanted fun, and
no fun allowed here.
No fun allowed.
It was no fun allowed, Michael Gilbert. It's funny, you mentioned in the beginning how they didn't show entrances, but I think this is the one entrance they showed on this show, and it was because Michael Gilbert just had no entrance music. He just walked out there, black trunks, black boots, crowds chanting Gilbert, Oh, it's so good because he's like, that's so not what he wants. Like he's, like you said, he's no gimmicks required. He's Dean Malenko kind of guy.
And I think that the guy who plays him, obviously Mikey Whiplash, like he was perfect whilst doing his character that he bit on the crowd reactions enough to get the crowd to like do it more, but he didn't make it like comedy. Like he would have bit on everything that was happening to him. It would have veered into him being a comedy character. He was brilliant at just keeping that line of character of being like, I'm just going to be a wrestler and I don't want anything to stop me from winning this grappling match, and giving the crowd enough to like, have some back and forth.
Yeah, exactly. So Gilbert comes out there. Jim Smallman, who's doing the ring announcing, Says there's been a bit of an amendment to this match because it was originally supposed to be RJ Singh versus Michael Gilbert, but it turns out it's actually going to be RJ Sting. I'm sorry, the man they call RJ Sting. So fucking RJ Singh. God, I love RJ Singh. He comes out with the Sting face paint. He has the bat. He has a Sting t-shirt. Just comes out there doing the all of it. That's
something that
outside.
I did know was that obviously the reason that I think a lot of the entrances weren't included on the service is because obviously it's copyrighted music, right. And the one time that they play a song, it was Metallica, who are famously fine with all their stuff being used, right?
Well, they use a ton of. I mean, I know. I guess they're kind of working together now, but they use a ton of WWE music. At least in the chapters, like they used Fandango's music a few chapters ago, and then later we see some more. But here we got RJ Sting coming out there, red hot. The match gets underway. RJ tries to lock in the Scorpion Deathlock, but Michael Gilbert counters into his own sharpshooter and gets the quick tap. Like 60 seconds into this, I'm like, wow, that was a lot of hullabaloo for a 60-second match. I can't believe it's over.
Yeah.
But wait, Michael Gilbert wants an interview, and the crowd is chanting Grado at him. I guess they want Grado to come out and show him what's what. But Gilbert, Gilbert's like, you look like the Down syndrome version of Grado. It's a great line by old Michael Gilbert.
So something that I said about like British wrestlers not being great on the mic. So obviously that like that chant for Grado was not a planned chant. It's just something that the crowd wanted, and like Michael Gilbert had 2 seconds to kind of ad-lib something if he wanted to, and that was what he came up with, and that's why British guys shouldn't be given the mic.
You didn't think it was clever? Oh no. Well, that obviously, I mean, the crowd is not happy with that. They're not happy with RJ Sting getting squashed. And I know you're like, man, we need some hero to come save us from Michael Gilbert. Who is that hero? Well, of course, it's gotta be Sin Cara. The music plays. It doesn't even like click in my mind that it's Sin Cara's music because it's been so long since I've heard it. I was like, that music sounds familiar. RJ Singh comes back out and he has a Sin Cara mask on. He goes to like trampoline into the ring, but there's obviously no trampoline, so he's like, well, where is it? You know, the whole thing. Jim Smallman on commentary is like, man, I'm surprised he hasn't gotten injured yet as he's like walking to the ring. So Sin Cara's in here going one-on-one with Michael Gilbert now. And so Sin Cara, he's doing the lucha libre thing. He's flying all over the place. He goes to the top rope. The crowd chants, please don't botch. Please don't botch. He doesn't botch because, well, it's not actually Sin Cara, so he doesn't botch. He goes for a swanton, but misses. Michael Gilbert locks in an armbar for another quick tap out. So Gilbert gets another win here, but he wants to continue with his interview here because obviously he's on a roll with these zingers. So he's got to keep that momentum going because he's that silver-tongued devil, this Michael Gilbert is. Gilbert starts talking some more. The crowd's chanting, shut the fuck up at him over and over again. And then we have a third match here. The original RJ Singh comes out. Going back to whatever chapter it was, chapter 1 or 2, when he had like the director with him and all that. He was like a Bollywood guy because I guess all Indians are Bollywood, apparently, according to wrestling. So RJ Singh is out here. They have another match. RJ locks in the ethnic submission, but Michael Gilbert fights out of it into a rear naked choke and gets another tap out. So RJ has now lost 3 times to Michael Gilbert. And this brings out Sticks because we needed some more Sticks on this show. To me, I thought originally this was supposed to be like a confrontation between Styx and Michael Gilbert. I thought they were gonna like
Yeah.
build a match between those two. They had a little stare down there. Michael Gilbert kind of backs off, but really that's not the story at all. The story is Styx and RJ Singh. But before we get into that little confrontation, what'd you think about all these shenanigans in these series of matches, I guess?
Again, it's perfect. It was a guy who doesn't believe in wrestling should be fun. Wrestling shouldn't be about characters. It should be just, two guys grappling and see
He
how
hates your podcast, probably.
he hates our podcast.
Yeah, I bet.
But he's not welcome because he says some terrible things. So yeah, for me, booking wise, this was absolutely perfect. You had people loving on RJ Singh, even though he lost 3 times in this match, and like a lot of serious wrestling fans would be like, "Fuck that guy, he's a dweeb." Like, the Progress crowd is about fun, especially at this point, and they probably love him even more after this because of the laughs that he gave the crowd.
Yeah, for sure.
And then also it allowed Gilbert to, do his thing and slowly kill 3 characters that he feels in wrestling there shouldn't be. And it also actually allowed the crowd to actually say to Gilbert that like you're also one, because obviously wrestling fans are smarks and they have to try and ruin things.
Right, yeah. Always.
But yeah, for me, I thought it was perfect. You got the fun stuff with the Sting and Sin Cara, and then you also got to see RJ Singh as the character that he started the journey in Progress with the return of the Professor, I think he's called. Right.
Yeah, definitely Michael Gilbert here, I think, is the perfect kind of foil for Progress at this point, because like you said, there's a lot of comedy involved, so he kind of provides that kind of juxtaposition, and it's just an easy guy to hate at this point, especially against somebody like RJ Singh, who's so beloved by the crowd here.
Yeah.
So for what it set out to do, I thought it was great. I thought it was really entertaining. But man, after the match, yeah, like I said, Styx is out here. RJ Singh is still in the ring. He just lost 3 times. Man, was the tea spilt in this segment here. So Styx grabs a mic. And by the way, I guess Styx and RJ Singh are really close. I think the commentary said that one of them was like the best man in the other's wedding or something like that.
Yes, that was actually mentioned by the wrestlers, I think.
Right. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, so I don't think that British wrestlers, the British wrestling fans would have known the backstory between these 2 guys.
Yeah.
So the crossover between kind of early 2000s British scene and what was here in 2013, 14?
2014, yep.
I don't think it was too high. I don't think many people would have been watching British wrestling when these 2 started. So I think that they did a brilliant job of kind of laying out the land of this story in this promo.
Yeah, so the story basically is that Styx, and this kind of, like we said earlier, this plays off of Styx's earlier match where he was kind of playing to the comedy aspect of it, but he was trying to be serious as much as he could. But the shenanigans kind of got the best of him, and that's kind of been his downfall thus far in Progress.
Yeah.
So Styx is out here. He's still obviously frustrated from his loss earlier, and now he just watched his friend RJ Singh, basically, in his words, kind of make a mockery of the whole thing. Obviously, he's treating this like a joke. He basically, because RJ Singh, I guess, is a full-time teacher. So Styx at one point is like, you got a cushy teacher job to fall back on. This is all I have kind of deal.
Yeah.
So RJ retorts by saying, oh, you're just pissed that you traveled to America for a woman and then you guys got divorced. So I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, this escalated quickly. And says, RJ's like, you're only good for rolling a pram around. And is a pram is a pram a stroller?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, wanted to make sure I have that right. Got the lingo down. But then Styx replies and says that RJ is only here because he fits the ethnic market. So, okay. All right, Sticky. And Styx is like, if you ever bring up my daughter again, I'm going to slap the piss out of you. And then what does RJ do? Well, he brings up his daughter again. And then lo and behold, he gets the piss slapped out of him by Styx. So Styx and RJ have a pull apart here after all the personal attacks at each other. Styx grabs the mic again and basically challenges him to a match at Chapter 16. And if RJ loses, he has to quit wrestling because he only does it for fun. So if I beat you, you have to quit wrestling. RJ then grabs the mic and he says he accepts, but only if Styx puts his career on the line as well. So that sets up a career versus career match at Chapter 16. And look, I went into this not knowing that these guys had any association with each other at all. But coming out of it, even though the segment was comedically long, I think it set up a really deep story between these two, and it made me invested in their match at the next chapter. So all in all, I think it was an effective little interaction there.
Yeah. I want to go further on that and say I think that's the best promo in British wrestling up until this point.
Really?
I can't tell you how little this sort of stuff happens in British wrestling. Independent wrestling. It just doesn't happen. And to be there live and watching it, it was God, they're actually doing a promo that sets up a match. Sort of stuff just doesn't happen over here. And I think that the fact that it was brave enough to kind of be a kind of worked shoot, and the crowd, annoyingly, they still the crowd did do the Jerry kind of oh, this is just soap opera stuff. But for someone that wouldn't mind these wrestlers actually doing a lot more of this, because like I've said in the past, it's probably the one thing that British wrestlers struggle with the most, and even in NXT UK, it's a great show and I love it, but it's very much reliant on the wrestlers telling stories in the ring, and the promo work that is done is so kind of just kind of base level.
It's very short and to the point. It's often more there'll be vignettes, Gallus will be in a pool hall, it'll be simple kind of dialogue based around the environment they're in.
Exactly. So for these two guys to come in, as you say, and not have anyone know the backstory, and to come in and do what they did, I think was absolutely amazing. And I think that it needs to be seen by more people. I generally think that performance by both of them was amazing.
Yeah, no, it was, I would agree. I mean, as far as what I've seen from Progress, it's definitely the best promo stuff that I've seen thus far. Maybe a close second would actually another segment involving Styx, but it was between him and Nathan Cruz, which might have been, was that Chapter 9? Yeah, that was Nathan Cruz, because he's probably by far the best guy on the mic, at least at this point. But yeah, sets up that match at Chapter 16, and good stuff by both those guys.
Yeah.
But following that, we have our second triple threat number one contenders match. So the winner of this match will join Rampage and the champion in a title match at the next chapter. So this match is Dave Mastiff versus El Ligero versus Martin Stone. For anybody not aware, that is Danny Burch. So man, what a NXT UK early days kind of match we got here.
Isn't Martin Stone here a lot more kind of his character as a heel, and he's a lot more built, isn't he? He's another one that seems to have gone down. I don't know exactly if he's gone down the same diet route that Dunne has, but he seems to have leaned down a lot, and he doesn't quite is imposing. But in this match, he just looks like the hooligan at the pub that you don't want to step on his toe.
Right. Yeah, he's in there with his pants and his black tank top. He's like a street bare knuckle fighter kind of guy. Yeah. I guess that's what he's trying to do. But
Yeah, I mean, he looks like you said, he looks pretty big here, pretty intimidating. He's almost like kind of being like built as like a powerhouse. At least that's kind of how he was portrayed in this match.
Yeah.
Like for example, so you got there's one point where like Dave Mastiff and Martin Stone like take turns doing the whole British Bulldog delayed vertical suplex onto El Ligero, but they like interrupt each other and they're like, "No, I'm doing it. No, I'm doing it," kind of deal.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Ligero kind of takes advantage of it as the two powerhouses kind of go back and forth. Ligero hits a top rope plancha on the Mastiff, gets in the ring, hits a springboard DDT on a Martin Stone, which is his finisher, but he only gets a 2 count. Ligero goes back to the top rope, but then Michael Gilbert is back, distracts Ligero. I don't remember if they've built to this.
So that's something that we didn't actually mention. In between where RJ Singh was changing characters backstage, when Gilbert wasn't slagging off people with Down syndrome, he was mentioning that like wrestling isn't about characters, and he says like it's not about the Grados and the RJ Singhs and the El Ligeros, so it actually does preempt this in that.
Right. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think he actually did cost Ligero a match at a previous chapter against Tommy End. So I guess they have some beef there. But so Ligero, he's at the top rope. He sees Michael Gilbert coming out. So Ligero decides to just jump onto Michael Gilbert, cross body from the top rope, and they kind of fight in the aisleway. They fight to the back, and that pretty much takes out Ligero from this match because he's dealing with Michael Gilbert here.
Yeah.
So now it's just Martin Stone and Dave Mastiff in the ring. Mastiff hits a deadlift German onto Martin Stone. Really impressive. Martin Stone fights back a little bit, hits some lariats, but ultimately gets caught with a cannonball in the corner from Dave Mastiff. Into the void is what he calls it now. I don't know what he called it at this point. But Big Dave gets the win here. Yeah, just a big lad just tossing his body at you. But Mastiff gets the win here, and so it'll be him and Rampage and whoever the champion is. So that's going to be a lot of meat, a lot of big sweaty men slapping meat in that match.
Yeah. Big E will be happy.
Yes, he will.
There was 2 moves in that match, kind of back to back, that kind of set up for me. Was the where Ligero did like the jumping nothing, and Stone caught him into Ace Crusher. That would look really cool.
Yeah. The jumping nothing.
And then he did a code red on Mastiff, and Mastiff is obviously so much bigger than him that he just slammed him onto his own balls, and was like he had to roll out the ring and be like, I need a few minutes, guys.
Man, I couldn't imagine having that man land on your balls. Oh, and you have like his asshole in your face. There's no good way to hit that. I don't know. He probably should have used another move in his repertoire for that.
And psychology.
So, but yeah, good match here. Probably not as good as the other triple threat, but
no,
solid.
There was one guy in the crowd that just hated Martin Stone.
Yeah, nobody really seemed to like Martin Stone here. I don't know what the beef is with my boy Danny, but
yeah. So like Martin Stone was a wrestler who was like one of the few wrestlers pre kind of the like boom of British wrestling that was a success in the British scene. And then he was a big part of Rev Pro. So I don't know whether some Progress fans would like, you're a Rev Pro guy and you're in the ballroom now, and like you're not welcome here. Even
can't
though,
have that.
Even though the whole thing of Progress was everyone welcome unless you work for Rev Pro.
I think that's their tagline. But that brings us to the main event. So we touched on this earlier. So it's an 8-man tag. We have the team of Noam Dar, Will Ospreay, and FSU, which is Eddie Dennis and Mark Andrews, versus the team of Regression, which is a faction comprised of Jimmy Havoc, the London Riots, and Paul Robinson. So this is a titles versus careers match. So the stakes are a bit contrived, but I'll try to lay it out here. So basically, you have Jimmy Havoc is the Progress champion. FSU are the tag team champions, and Will Ospreay, of course, is the Thunder Bastard, which is essentially Mr. Money in the Bank. So basically, if you are a champion or a Thunder Bastard and you lose your title and or your Thunder Bastarddom. If you are not a champion, you're gone from Progress if you lose. And this only applies to the person that takes the pinfall, I guess. And I guess if you're they didn't really cover like who wins the title if they lose, but it doesn't really matter in hindsight. So, but yeah, this match is, I mean, most of it we mentioned earlier. It's 8-man tag. It gets off red hot right from the beginning. We laid out the backstory. It's very personal vendetta between all these guys. So it turns into a street fight, just chaos from the beginning. Really good intensity from everybody involved. They fight in the ring for a little bit, but eventually it makes its way to the aisleway. Like you have Noam Dar and Mark Andrews, Eddie Dennis. They're all doing planchas and all sorts of flips to the outside. They fight in the aisleway. And so it's just a lot of guys just throwing punches and all that. And all of a sudden, you see Will Ospreay and Jimmy Havoc fighting on the balcony that's by the stage area. So we got some Lion King bullshit over here where like each guy's trying to knock the other one off. And eventually Jimmy Havoc, he's like hanging by the ledge. Will Ospreay hits a super kick onto Jimmy Havoc, and Havoc falls off the balcony onto a pile of bodies, which are the other lads involved in this match. And then Ospreay follows this up. Well, he's not just going to walk down the stairs to get to him. He has to channel his inner super crazy, does a moonsault off the balcony onto everybody. Like, just crazy. And you said you were there for this, right?
Like I told you previously that that like my jaw dropped at the fact that I saw a promo. So to see this, I was like,
you had a low bar going into this. So somebody jumping from 20 feet in the air is, oh my God, can't even process this.
Yeah, it was like the pandemonium that was happening on the screen captured exactly what it was like being there live. And obviously being there live, like it's like it was a shame that it didn't show the regression entrance, because the heat that those guys had for that entrance was so amazing to like be there live.
I bet.
The crowd hated them, and then obviously it goes all around the ring. From where we were stood live, we couldn't really see much pre them getting back into the ring. Mm-hmm. But like we had the classic chant of like, "This sounds awesome."
It's not as bad as the garage, but it's still pretty rough.
And then when they came like sauntering towards us, and then we looked up and then we saw like people falling off the balcony and stuff. Yeah, it was. It just felt like we would like we'd already seen what was a very stellar card up until now, but like. Mm-hmm. The story here is so well built, and how you got like the face off at the start, how they started off in the ring, how Noam Dar was facing off with Havoc because he had something from the last chapter to deal with him. Mm-hmm. Robinson was facing off with
Ospreay
because obviously he turned on him, and then you had the two tag teams that were fighting over the titles. Yeah. Like the story was so well built, and like the excitement in the room for this happening, it felt akin to kind of when for the first time the Shield and the Wyatt family faced off. It felt that like kind of, oh my God,
the standoff, like regression comes out. The baby faces are already in the ring. Like you said, it's kind of that similar standoff to the Shield and the Wyatt family, and it sounds like a lot of chaos, and it was, but like you said, there was intent and reasoning behind what was happening. You had the people that had vendettas against each other fighting off, so it was chaos, but it was controlled chaos. If that makes any sense.
And then once they got into the ring, previous to the balcony spots, like Ospreay took all the heat, and he was a brilliant seller. Even at this point, and matched up against the intensity and the charisma of the heel Havoc, who was just in his element here. Like you can just tell that he loved getting fucking spat on by 700 people. Like he just absolutely relished it, and he was so good at it. There was one point where Ospreay was beaten so much that he like drags his lifeless body to the other corner, and Havoc knocks his partners off the ropes, goes onto his side of the rope and takes the tag. Ospreay thinking that he's tagged out, and then Havoc gets into the ring and does like the baby face, come on, to the crowd. Down on Ospreay, like such a
that hot tag, brother.
He's so good at being a cunt.
Should mention at one point, so after that balcony spot, it was actually ruled a count out. Because they were fighting on the outside for fucking forever. But Jim Smallman's like, I think he says, I don't give a fuck about the rules. What does he say? He's like, he calls somebody a cunt. Hey, you cunt! I don't give a fuck about the rules. He's just so matter of fact about it. It's hilarious. But basically restarts the match and it basically says it's a street fight. And like you said, it kind of works its way back into the ring. Ospreay takes a beating for a long time, like you mentioned. There's one point where Havoc, he's going for an Alabama slam on Ospreay, but Ospreay counters it into a Canadian destroyer, which looks brutal. And following this, Mark Andrews goes for a shooting star press onto Havoc to try to get the win. But that goddamn Paul Robinson, that little rat, Paul Robinson, pulls the referee out of the ring to stop the count. And it's at this point where chaos begins to ensue once again. Everybody's kind of getting in there, hitting their finishers. FSU hits their little next stop driver, double stomp, double team. Everyone's getting in there. The Riots are just battering everybody. At one point, Havoc hits the Rainmaker onto Noam Dar. Almost gets the win there, but it's only a 2 count. Then at one point after that, Noam grabs the chair, goes to hit Havoc with it. But Havoc pulls James Davis in front of him, his partner. He pulls his own partner in front of him, and Davis gets cracked in the head with this. Yeah. That was a brutal chair shot that just rang throughout the ballroom.
Being there live for that, it sounded like a gunshot. Like, good Lord. Like, I'm not particularly great at watching stuff like that now because, like, even our like national sport, football / soccer for you guys, like there's like talk about even like heading being banned from football because it's got real links with like Alzheimer's and like,
oh really,
and like to like see a guy just kind of allow his brain to be scrambled by a steel chair. It's just he was probably paid like, I don't know, £100 for this. Like
that's a lot of quid. I hate letting my quid go away, but you know, I try to save my quid, everybody. But yeah, but he doesn't want to take the chair shot.
No,
he gets pulled in front of it. He takes the bullet for his buddy Jimmy Havoc here. So James Davis, he's laid out. Ospreay comes in, super kicks Jimmy Havoc, takes him out of the match. Or he super kicks him, and then Havoc is laid next to James Davis, basically. Oh no, they're on top of each other. I think Havoc is actually on top of James Davis here after that super kick.
And there's actually a really nice story beat here where Andrews basically tells Ospreay, no, like I won't win the title, you can win the title, and says like, you go up on the ring. And that's because I think didn't like he put him in the MPS.
Yeah. So Andrews was the first winner of the Natural Progression Series, and he got to choose a person to be in the next year's one, and then he chose, like you said, Will Ospreay, and then Ospreay got screwed out of his match basically by Paul Robinson.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good tidbit of storytelling there, Mark Andrews. 'Cause remember, whoever if somebody pins Jimmy Havoc, I guess they win the staff.
Yeah.
So Ospreay goes to the top. On the floor, you have James Davis. You have Jimmy Havoc laying on top of him. Ospreay goes for the 630, but Paul Robinson pulls out Jimmy Havoc. He doesn't give a fuck about James Davis. He leaves him. Ospreay lands the 630 on the James Davis and gets the pin. So Ospreay pins James Davis. So what this means is that the London Riots are gone from Progress. And so the baby faces kind of celebrate. They leave. The music cuts off. Jim Smallman, who has quite the beef with these London Riots, because the riots have basically been causing havoc, pardon the pun, on Progress. Kind of been holding the company hostage in certain ways. They've been just running roughshod. So Jim Smallman, he grabs the mic. He's looking at the Riots, who are basically like just sitting in the ring, distraught after losing and being kicked out of Progress. Jim Smallman's basically like, yeah, now your mates are gone. Well, where are your mates now? Now that you're losers, or however, he talks.
Yeah, I just thought that this match was fantastic. Like, being there live, it was almost too chaotic to really take in all the all the story beats, and you can really see all the action. Like, for example, from where we were stood, we couldn't actually see that Havoc was slid out, so we just thought that Ospreay's won the title.
Yeah,
but like watching it back, like they hit so many brilliant story beats, and the match itself is so like frenetic and fun, and every character in it plays a part and is better off for being in it.
In some ways, it like reminds me of like Attitude Era main events, where it wouldn't be like wrestling. Like they weren't there to be the wrestling matches. They were there to be like the storytelling elements are there, the stakes involved, the chaos, whether it's weapons or whatever it is. And that's what this match was. It was a lot of shenanigans. It was a lot of, obviously, weapons, fighting on the outside, a frenetic energy, like you said. And the crowd was into it. You and everybody else were into it every step of the way, even if you couldn't see what was happening. So, this main event was red hot. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, and classic wrestling fandom of like, you've hated these guys for 6 chapters and you've sworn at them and you've spat at them for a year and a half, and then they get fired and then you start chanting their name.
Yeah, that's how it works, right? Yeah, I guess, because basically, at least it seems to me that this kind of is designed to build tension between the Riots and Jimmy Havoc. This is what I'm assuming, just based off of what happens here. So it's almost like a little bit of sympathy being built for the London Riots, which is bizarre given how they've been built so far. But it was effective, so I can't really hate it too much. But it left me curious as to what would happen in later chapters. So very successful in that front.
Yeah, and now they've set up Havoc against Brown and Mastiff, and like, how is he going to survive that? So yeah,
exactly. So great stuff in Progress as always. But that brings the show to a close. So any other like overall thoughts on chapter 15?
No, not like nothing more than what I've said, really, just beyond the fact that it just highlighted to me how much fun those shows were. Both live and watching on the service that Progress had. So we all had the service, and after the matches would finish, we'd have to wait till like 2 or 3 weeks to watch it back. But we always would. We'd have like viewing parties and stuff. Like, we were just so into it, and I can see why we were. But looking back, it felt like Britain was becoming an epicenter of good wrestling, and they were telling stories, and like obviously it became something maybe too big for what it started off with the intention of being. And the biggest kind of takeaway from Progress is probably NXT UK, and that's got its own issues from people in the British wrestling scene. But for the likes of me and you, who still watch that show, I think that Progress, whether it comes back or not, like you have to look back at that kind of bubble that it was in for 2 or 3, 4 years and just say like, wow, like you've got to like just go back and enjoy these things, right?
Yeah, it's just so fun to watch. I mean, like it reminds me of like watching Ring of Honor back in the day. It just felt like its own, like you said, it felt like a bubble that was kind of independent of other wrestling. It's easy watches every time I turn on these chapters. So great stuff. Great
I'm always
stuff
quite
in progress.
intrigued with your other podcasts on Progress with different podcasters, hearing their thoughts on the early shows, and it seems pretty much universally liked.
Yeah. I've even had people on that have never watched Progress before, and they're like always they say it was a great show, it's easy watch, and I think that's even a more testament to the quality when you can just jump in on a random chapter and enjoy it. Independent of the storylines, but a fun show. But speaking of fun, I think wrestling should be fun. Where can the Wrestling Should Be Fun podcast, where can everybody find you guys and listen to you guys?
Yeah, sure. So, well, Wrestling Should Be Fun. With a group of about 4 of us that tend to be on the weekly shows. We're a podcast that are available on SoundCloud, Apple, and Spotify. We basically talk about the week's wrestling that just was. Then we have a round table where each of the people are allowed to bring one question or kind of a theme, and we just talk around that for about half an hour, which is fun. And then we also have Book a Bingo, which is a fun little game where a big old spreadsheet of wrestlers, male and female. So there could be intergender matches, and it throws up a match, and then we have to book a feud. Kyle was part of it on his episode. I think we did, was it Conan?
It was Conan and Tamina.
And Tamina.
had to build a hot feud between Conan and Tamina. No, that was your guys' podcast is hilarious. It was a great time when I was on it. It was I've never been put in that scenario where I had to book a feud, especially between those two. What was the last one? It was like, oh my God, what was it? The last Booker Bingo you guys did.
Zaya Brookside against Hikuleo.
That's right. I would have been lost on that. I'm so glad I wasn't on that episode. Man.
So yeah, that's our podcast. We're available mostly on a Friday. We try and do every week. Sometimes we miss a week. But yeah, and then we're also very much up for being on other people's podcasts. So reach out to us on our socials, which is Instagram is @Wrestling Should Be Fun, and Twitter is @WSBFUN.
A great social media follow, by the way. Anybody listening here, guys? I don't know who controls. Is it Dom that controls your Instagram?
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys, Twitter is great too. Like, it's all good. Dom was on my one of my ROH episodes. That was a really good one too. So you guys do a lot of fun stuff over there, as per your show title, I guess. But
we're quite rare in the wrestling industry, like social sphere, that we just try and be positive and try and make you laugh. That's our two.
Can't have that.
That's
nope.
Two key themes.
Yeah. Yeah. So everybody go check that out. And yeah, man, thanks once again for coming on.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me on, and I look forward to being on a future Progress podcast at some point soon.
Once again, thank you to Ross from the Wrestling Should Be Fun podcast for joining me in progressing on in Progress Wrestling. Go check them out wherever you listen to podcasts or at WrestlingShouldBeFun.com. Follow them on social media, on Twitter @WSBFun, or on Instagram @WrestlingShouldBeFun. Always a good time with those guys, whoever it is that I do shows with, whether it's Ross, Brum, Dom, or any of those guys. Always a hoot with those cheeky blokes. Go check out their podcast, because I was on an episode as well. Actually, episode 24, I was lucky enough to be a guest on their show, and it was a great time. We mentioned in the episode, but we got to book a whole program between Tamina and Conan. So That's the kind of stuff you'll see on their show. But go check that out. Check me out at apronbump.com for all my full episodes. Make sure to go subscribe on YouTube as well. The video versions, of course, are on YouTube as well. So go check those out. Give it a like. Give it a subscribe. Ring the bell. Lick my balls. All the normal actions that you would take to support a creator on YouTube. So do that or don't. Be an asshole, I guess, if you want. And fuck you, bitch. I don't know why I'm ending this episode in a hostile note like this, but fuck you, I guess. I don't know. Still figuring out how to end episodes. Well, that's all I got. Thanks for stopping by. I guess. I don't know. Thank you once again for listening. I'm hard.
Yeah. And the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing I guess. Let's get it started.